Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to Seminole Sidelines. We hope you had a great weekend. Florida State Athletics had a really good weekend all the way around. How about Link Jarrett's baseball team going on the road to TCU and taking care of business? How about Florida State men's basketball going down to Coral Gables and stunning the Miami Hurricanes on their home floor? By the way, the senior class at Florida State has never lost to Miami in Coral Gables. And so they will always have that. FSU Softball takes care of business in the Unconquered Invitational. And we'll talk some Florida State women's basketball as well. Lost to Clemson, but turning the page as we move into postseason basketball and head to Greensboro. Curt Weiler, we say hello to Alex DeCapua, who now joins the Osceola and then takes on a part-time role with us as video and pods. Alex, welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Curt, you had a great weekend, I'm sure, watching the Seminole baseball team. And so let's get right into it as we talk. Also want to remind you guys, we're on Apple, on Spotify, Google Pods, iHeart, wherever if you are wanting to listen to this after on demand. And appreciate those of you joining us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter doing this live. You can comment on this show. We'll try and give you a shout out. And, of course, mash that subscribe button and support us here at theosceola.com. Curt, big weekend for FSU. They win 10-1 on Friday, 10-8 on Saturday, and the offense continues to roll over there in Fort Worth.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about on this show last week, I think on Friday, about, I think winning one game there, I think would have been fine. It would have been enough. So to go in, win the first two and come pretty darn close to a sweep. Leading into the later innings of that game Sunday. It was a statement. There wasn't much hype around this team. I think there were obvious holes on this team kind of entering the season, and those haven't magically been fixed. But I think you've seen right away the Link Jarrett impact, the Rich Wallace impact, and the Chuck Ristano impact as the pitching coach in different ways. It was a loud, to kind of use a baseball term, it was a loud series win for an FSU team that not a lot was expected. That TCU team, like we talked about, had beaten two top 10 teams the week before, and they definitely looked like the worst team in that weekend on their home field.
Yeah, those of you welcoming in Alex does a lot of production for Florida State and lead producer for baseball this season, as well as a sideline reporter for all Florida State athletics. You guys can check her out. You saw there on her Twitter handle. Alex, you've covered this team since fall scrimmages, since spring scrimmages. What a weekend for them to go on the road. And Link Jarrett told us on Tuesday at JU, this would be a super regional type atmosphere, and they passed their test with flying colors.
Yes, yeah, he did. First, thank you so much for that introduction. I think that I've been really high on Link Jarrett since we saw him come with Notre Dame last season here, take the sweep here at home, and followed him all the way through the postseason. Ariya, we saw him in Charlotte. Him and his team were fantastic there as well. So I think that it's really cool to see him come in and take ownership of this team. I think that, had you told me, or when I did find out, right, that there were going to be 18 freshmen on this roster, not a lot of leadership, the leadership that we do have, pretty much coming from sophomores and Tibbs and Ferrer. We have Carry On, which is awesome. And Nander DeSatis that's coming back. So that's two leadership positions. But other than that, spread pretty thin in that leadership department, but he's really taken control of this team. And you mentioned it as well with Brett and on here on Friday, right, that he just has calm confidence, Link Jarrett, with his team. And you're seeing that. I think that it showed so much maturity for them to go to TCU and pull 2 of the 3 wins.
Without a doubt. I like that you mentioned the effect that Link Jarrett has, Alex. Curt, can a coach have this level of impact after just 2 weekends? They were timely hitting. We saw decent fielding. Double plays were being turned cleanly. These are things we didn't see last year. These are things that are obviously on the road in front of 5,000 people. We saw that team crumble a few times late. How impressed were you by what they did at Fort Worth? And what are your thoughts so far on the effect that Link has had on this roster?
Yeah, I think the Saturday game is the game you really look at. The Friday game, obviously that score, it was 5-1 going to the 9th, and they kind of put it away with a big inning there. But I think the Saturday game, definitely the high scoring contested one of the weekend one. The situational hitting came up big there. I know, Ariya, you and I Friday night, we're talking a little about wouldn't have been surprised if kind of coming off the big win, if TCU kind of came back on Saturday and had a response, maybe they win a lopsided game. I mean, that is a very talented, especially a TCU offense. That's a very good. They came into the weekend averaging, I think, 11 runs a game. So, yeah, I think for Florida State to look like the more composed offense is a testament to Link Jarrett. I mean, we've seen kind of reclamation projects at the plate. I mean, what he's done with guys like freshman DMS Ross right away, Cam Smith right away. I think the improvements you've seen from guys like Jaime Ferrer and James Tibbs, and even, I mean, I think Nander DeSatis has looked like as complete a hitter as he ever has after kind of going away to Missouri for a year and now coming back. I think the impact's been clear. I know he's a big thing with him. Kind of when you watch him out at practice is if you get a good pitch early in the at-bat, swing. You didn't always see that with Mike Martin Jr. He sometimes wanted to push pitch counts, wanted to you kind of like wait for certain things. And that's, I mean, Link Jarrett is very much attack, and you saw that in quite a few big moments. The situational hitting is what won them in particular Saturday's game.
You know who had some really good situational hitting? Alex, you're a big Jaime Ferrer fan.
My goodness.
This kid is playing as loose, as free as we've seen him in his time in Tallahassee. Brett Nevitt, friend of the show and a friend of ours, has been saying he's one of the best players in the country, and he's a guy that hasn't gotten maybe the level of recognition that he deserves because of how the season went last year for Florida State and flying under the radar. Boy, on one of the biggest stages, right, at TCU, he mashed a couple of big-time home runs and was key all weekend long.
Yeah, I mean, I said it last season at the end of the year, I feel like he was last season's MVP because he does play with so much heart, right? And he is so consistent. He shows the maturity at the plate. He's great defensively. He's got a great arm. He can throw the ball from right field to home without a cutoff man if needed, I think that just watching him really emerge, right, and seeing that intensity that he plays with is my favorite part about Jaime. And it's never been a question of his talent for me. So it's great to see him, step out and do it on a big stage against a top 10 team.
And that's why he's a sophomore captain. I think he is a guy, like you talked about the leadership. He has stepped into that role in a major way. Him and Jordan Carrion, I think, have really embraced that. And you've seen it. Go read my story. I did a pretty good story about Jaime before the season started about him. And I mean, obviously, all he does while playing with type 2 diabetes, kind of his game day is a lot different than everyone else's, but it sure doesn't stop him. It sure didn't stop him this weekend.
Yeah, and Jarrett has also talked about, he's the guy that he's in the batting cages all the time. He's locked in, he's focused. He's that player that's doing that extra work. And it shows, coming into your sophomore season after having a lot of success in your freshman season, it's hard to really make that leap. Pitchers have been able to figure it out. They've studied what you did as your freshman year. Coaches talked a lot about that and a lot about how Jaime and Tibbs have had to really step up and what he was going to expect from them this year, while also being mindful of the fact that it's a difficult leap to make.
Too, I want to shout out his defense as well this weekend. He had a couple of strong throws to keep guys from rounding third and coming home. He made a nice catch in right field. I want to say it was in Friday's game on a ball that was going back. And so his defense has been something he's worked on tremendously as well, because he came to Florida State as a catcher. He was not an outfielder, and they've kind of transformed him out there, and he's doing a good job. So Jaime, big weekend for him, especially first two games. And then, of course, James Tibbs, Cam Smith. You guys mentioned earlier the bottom of the order with Vincent and DeSatis all had some key moments. This lineup right now, Curt, is looking like it's going to be not just a force to be reckoned with, but it's got a shot to be one of the better units in the ACC.
Yeah, I think we thought that coming into the year, and I think it's definitely been proven to be true. I think we thought kind of, and we'll talk about the pitchers, I'm sure, in a second. We kind of thought this team would take them as far as the lineup would take them. And I mean, the early returns have been very positive. Like you talked about, I mean, the days like Sunday's game where you only had 2 runs on 2 hits, they're going to happen. No team is going to average 10 runs a game. That doesn't happen just because there is the ebb and flow of some of that. But I mean, there've been so much more ups. I mean, I think 5 of their first 6 games, they had 10 runs and 10 hits. It's come from so many different places. Like you said, you feel better about, I mean, what Colton Vincent's done. I think he already has his next extra base hit. I think he'll have as many as he had all last year. And what he's done really rounds out the lineup, where it doesn't feel so much like you have no confidence in getting production from the bottom three in the lineup, like has sometimes been the case of late. I think there is maybe not like you don't feel as good 1 through 9, but you definitely feel as good about that bottom of the lineup as you have in a while.
And they're doing this without McGuire Holbrook, who's hurt. We're going to keep tabs on Diamez Ross, who on Saturday got smashed in the finger trying to bunt. That's a key cog. If he has to miss a couple of weeks, no confirmation on if it's a fracture or a bone bruise. I'm guessing Link's going to keep that tight to the chest. I wouldn't go out there and tell the public necessarily, but we'll try and find out. That is a big deal. I mean, Diamez has been arguably the most impressive freshman. Cam Smith has been phenomenal, but I think a lot of people expected Cam Smith to come in and be really good. Diamez at the leadoff spot. I mean, when Tyler Martin left, you were like, who's going to take over? And Ross has come in and he lays down bunts. He's got blazing speed. He hits. He's got a little bit of swagger to him too, some energy when when he's running around the bases. And he's been pretty good in center too. I think he's actually done a really nice job in the field. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on. When he came out of the lineup Sunday, guys, the offense kind of struggled. Obviously, that could be TCU had something to do with it too. I mean, that's a top 10 team. But we'll keep an eye out on that. So lineup looks good. We'll have more opportunities to watch them throughout the week. They play USF tomorrow at Hauser. Can we talk about what's up?
Wednesday.
You're right, Curt. I apologize.
A lot of midweeks last year on Tuesday. This year, I feel like they're more on Wednesdays.
They might need the day off. I actually
spaces things better for with a non-deep pitching staff. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the pitching, because I think as impressive as the hitting was in Fort Worth, the starting pitching was really good too. And maybe one of the key headlines of the weekend is Jackson Baumeister taking that next step forward. We all thought, well, what's going to happen when Parker Messick moves on? He's been unbelievable for 2 years in that Friday spot. Now we try to figure out, who's next. Carson Montgomery, first start of the year against JMU, it was okay. It wasn't vintage Carson Montgomery that we had seen. So the door was open. And an injury pushes Carson back a couple of days and gives Jackson the opportunity. Guys, he stepped up. I mean, he looked like a first-round talent. Fastball, I heard, was up to 96 on the day. TCU had no answers for this kid. And 80 pitches, they're still trying to, Curt, limit the number of pitches early in the year and kind of warm guys back up and get them extended. How impressed are you, and how big of a development is this for Florida State going forward with Baumeister?
It's a huge development, no doubt. I mean, he took a no-hitter into the 6th inning against a top 10 team that is definitely a top 10 team more because of its lineup than its pitching staff. I mean, that was a lineup that was mashing coming in, and they could not generate much of anything against Jackson. I mean, everything was working for him. I mean, when he has because he has such an array of pitches. I mean, to have the fastball so fast, to have, the changeup, to have the curve, everything was working for him. And it was pretty fun to see. I think you almost felt, his confidence building, just watching him as that outing went on and more and more time went on. And he just kept rolling. I mean, he was definitely, I think he seemed frustrated on the mound that they didn't give him the chance to and get out of that 6th inning jam, really the only jam he faced in his entire outing. But I think, to be able to turn to Wyatt Crowell was, I think, the right move there. And he validated that. But no, it was a major development for I think if you can get that, you could definitely justify having Wyatt and Connor Whitaker in the roles they are in, that you don't need them to be the starters you thought you would coming into the year.
I think it's really awesome to see him come and take this step, right? We know he was a highly touted recruit coming out of high school, right? That he, could have taken a lot of money in the draft, and he decided to come to campus instead. And last season, we didn't get to see a ton of that from him. We saw him come in, but he was young, right? He, so you could see the nerves a lot of the times that he was on the mound. He came in, on the mound a lot in the middle of the games, and he had a few good outings. But to see him step up like this, like you said, Ariya, in front of 5,000 people under the lights on Friday night as that guy, and just develop his confidence, I think was so key and so good to see. And also very relieving for Florida State fans that were worried about this pitching staff, right? If you can't come out on Friday night and throw strikes, well, then you're in trouble. But if you can throw strikes and have 4 pitches with it, all of which are working, I think it's really fantastic.
Because then they paired Wyatt Crowell with Jackson on Friday, and it was over. Like, Wyatt comes in, lights out. He's kind of like swag walking off the hill a couple times because he knows you can't touch his slider. And I think that's best case scenario for FSU this year. Link's been on record as saying, look, we're not deep in the pitching staff. If a coach comes out and says that publicly, it means that they kind of are accepting who they are. They need a couple of guys to step up, right? And on the weekends, be able to give you that so that Crowell and Whitaker can come in those roles, middle relief, and try and even close the game out if they can. And so that's the recipe for FSU. A lot of it was hinging on what J-Bomb did. A lot of it hinges on how Carson Montgomery pitches for FSU. Both guys are first-round talents. I mean, they both came in 5-star blue-chip recruits that were on top 100s of the MLBdraft.com, rankings coming in from high school. So them realizing their potential is a really big deal for FSU. And Curt, let's talk about Carson because, it's been I've called it the curious case of Carson Montgomery because he comes in and you're like, who is this kid? He throws 97 and he was 17 years old when he got to campus, and you're just salivating over the thought of what Carson can become. And it just has not been consistent, right? We've seen it in flashes. We've seen that slider completely buckle hitters. We've seen the fastball up to 98 on the gun out of relief. It's all there. If he can put it together this season for FSU, you're talking about the ceiling of the team raising, and you can start to think about Omaha a little bit. Sunday was a big step forward for him against TCU.
Yeah, so you talked about his first outing, and I agree. I think it was okay. I think it makes sense when you find out after the fact from Jarrett that he, while stretching for that game, tweaked something in a muscle in his leg and was kind of not 100%. I think he didn't look 100%. And I think the extra days of rest helped him kind of moving from the Friday to the Sunday spot, at least for now. And he looked more like himself. He looked more like the impressive pitcher he was this preseason in his start yesterday. I mean, he looked at that line, not at all responsible for the loss. I mean, I think he got put in some jams even by the defense. I think errors in each of the first 2 innings, and he worked both out of them, both scoreless. And so, I think he looked more the part. And I think you feel good about. I mean, 2/3 of the rotation, I think, through 2 weeks. We haven't seen Jamie Arnold kind of take that next step yet. He's struggled to get out of the 3rd inning in both his starts, but you feel good about both those two. I'm interested to see how they if they change how they align things, or maybe keep them the 3 how they were, at least for next week in as your host at FGCU.
I think with Carson, it's hard, right? These diamond sports, especially pitching, it's so mental. And I think, right, everyone knows that they've seen those spurts from him. They've seen him excel really well, and then they've seen him struggle. And I think he came in, last Friday night with all that pressure of, okay, well, it's opening day and I'm under the lights here. But on Sunday, he got to come in and he said, okay, we've already clinched this series and I'm ready to show my stuff. And I think that having a starter that can come in on Sunday and perform so well, 5 strikeouts. Yes, he had 5 hits on him, but still for him to perform at a high level is what Florida State is going to need on Sunday because, right, Link has been very open and honest. The bullpen's not deep, but if you have a guy like J-Bomb that can come in on Friday night confidently and ready, and then Carson on Sunday ready to go, I think that's a really good recipe for success.
Sunday is going to probably be an important day for them because I'm thinking most weekends that's going to end up being the day where they don't have Wyatt or Connor Whitaker in the back end. So they're going to have more innings to fill. And so if he were to stay in that role, which I could see the value of, and if he's able to give you 5 or 6 solid innings, kind of give the offense a chance, I think that's it would be a major help for this team for sure.
I have no inside info yet, but I have a feeling Carson will move into Saturday. You move him up one day. He only threw 75 pitches. I think that's not ridiculous to do, right? Like, you're not vastly changing the day of the week that he's pitching on, but I do hear you there, Curt. I think it could be advantageous to have him on a Sunday. And that's because, right, if you've already won the series, you can go for the sweep. if you're tied, you have kind of a first-round talent, a premier talent going on Sundays in the rubber match.
Yeah, not having your highest leverage, your best relievers, and throwing Jamie Arnold out there, who hasn't yet made it through 3 innings in his first 2 starts, and that's on a limited pitch count. They're still kind of ramping up. All that's true, but you haven't seen it all from Jamie. You've seen it in spurts. You haven't seen him kind of piece it all together and make it through 3 innings. It feels like a potential recipe for some Sunday struggles, which was obviously a theme last year. So I'll be interested to see how that finally lands. I think there easily could be a few more shifts.
Yeah. Alex, you remember Link saying they're going to focus on Sundays this year? I mean, that's something he said is we've got to win Sundays. Especially, I think Noles fans want to see the Sunday Golds be victorious again. It's been a while. They look so good. We don't need to be having L's in those Sunday Golds.
Absolutely. I think that, something when you were talking about this Sunday slot that came to my mind is what Connor Grady was able to do a few years ago on Sundays, right? Like he was able to come out strong. And if you have that pitching matched with this batting lineup, I think that it could be really beneficial, right? You do want to win on Sundays. Sundays just aren't the throwaway games. That's a lot of baseball that is going to be played in a lot of games that you need to win, talking about the postseason. Now, obviously we're only week 2 right now, but with that comes, the snowball effect of this is how the season's going to shake out. So I think that if Carson were to stay in that Sunday slot, or whoever does, if we can have a dominant pitcher come in and start, I think that could be really, really beneficial.
I mean, there are going to be plenty of weeks where that's a rubber match. For the first 2, Florida State's won both the first 2, but there are going to be plenty of weeks where that's a rubber match.
I don't know if y'all have seen the schedule for ACC play. All of the tough ones, at least on paper, to start the year are on the road, right? Yeah. You've got like Miami, NC State's on the road, Virginia's on the road. I mean, the who's who of the ACC, they're going to be in hostile environments, which was part of why I was so impressed with what they did at TCU. That was a primer for them. Like what can you do on the road in a hostile environment? They passed. I mean, the whole team passed the test, and they were outs away from a sweep, which would have been the loudest statement in college baseball, I think, in like 2 or 3 years. Like that would have been big time.
I mean, that's like Jarrett's MO. If you're going to have success at Notre Dame, you playing a lot on the road, being in a place where you're not really hosting games till well into the season. And his teams were very good on the road. I mean, that's definitely something he has tried to instill, because Florida State has not been good on the road the last few years. I mean, they were pretty dreadful at times, some kind of backbreaking losses on the road in big moments. And so, yeah, I think, it's an encouraging sign, because if you can go win on the road, when your hardest series are on the road, if you can go have success, I mean, that's great for your RPI. If you're a team that may play its way into the hosting conversation, that could be a big deal, but you have to take advantage of that. And Florida State got off to a great start on that this weekend.
Curt, I really like your point about, Notre Dame having to be on the road all last season. I remember last year when they came, it was the first weekend of April. April baseball was here. They had already traveled 5,000 miles in their season. They had already been to so many different stops. And Coach mentioned that when he was talking to us on Tuesday, right? He said, we have to stay organized when we go to these away series. We've got to be able to stay locked in and stay playing our game no matter where we're at. And I think that's just how that schedule shakes out, right? They had a dream of a schedule, right, last season at home, and now they're going to have to go on the road with a new head coach, with a young team. It's going to be difficult to do, but I think it does also make a statement when you can have success.
I was texting a few people this weekend, and it was very Notre Dame-esque, right? Like this is not an apples to apples comparison between FSU and Notre Dame. For one, this FSU team is light years more talented than what Link Jarrett had at Notre Dame, but it went back to like Notre Dame teams under Link got stronger as the game went on. Like 7th, 8th, 9th inning, you were like, dang, Notre Dame is hung in there, and here come the clutch hits. And FSU did that against TCU. The Friday game, guys, like it was nothing after 5 innings. It was like the Noles poured it on late. And then Saturday, of course, the big hits came in the 7th inning and in the 9th inning when they kind of put that game to bed. So it's been really impressive to see the confidence, the calm that we talked about earlier. It's there, and you can see it in that lineup. And I mean, even Nander DeSatis looks calm. I mean, it's been fun to watch. I've enjoyed the first 7 games of the season for FSU. And the final point I want to make, just to go back to Sundays, there's a development there with Army. Andrew Armstrong pitched really well all weekend. Doug Kirkland and Brennan Oxford had some good moments too. Those are going to be some names, when we get to Sundays, or we get into roles where Wyatt Crowell and Connor Whitaker aren't available anymore. Those are the guys I think they're going to go to first to get the job done. And I thought they actually showed pretty well this weekend at TCU. So strong weekend for the Noles in Fort Worth. I do want to pop this graphic up if I can find it and I can get more organized. How about this? Well, top 25 ranking for the Noles. The respect is being given. Number 16, according to D1 Baseball's newly released top 25 this morning. Alex DeCapua, you were going to produce a top 25 team as of today.
I mean, my goodness, what an honor. You think too, last season, right? Beginning of June, you're the last 4 in, and now you're sitting at number 16 in week 2. I think that's such an accomplishment. I think this team, right, has so much talent. I would love to be able to talk about Army and, what he's been able to develop and do too. I remember just being a friend of the team last year. The guy said, he has all the stuff. He has all the stuff. He's going to be great. He's filled out a little bit. He's come in with confidence to be able to have him come out of the bullpen multiple days in the series and perform well is really cool.
Yeah. So we'll keep tabs on them, Curt. Maybe some more baseball talk on Friday. As they get set for FGCU. I will pop this up for those of you watching. If you want to get out to Hauser on Wednesday, USF in-state foe, they're going to treat this game like their Super Bowl because anytime you get a chance at Florida State at Hauser as a player, I'm not, dissing USF, but some of those kids wanted to play at Florida State and they take that seriously. And there have been some upsets in the past where they have talked their smack. UCF also fits that bill. When they play Florida State. So Wednesday, 5:00. In case you were wondering, USF did beat Florida last week in Gainesville. That game was actually hilarious. Florida led going into the 9th, and USF dropped like an 8 spot in the 9th inning against the Gators. So you love to see it, and you hope they don't do it again on Wednesday against FSU. So I think Ben Barrett will probably go, Curt. Do you think he'll get his second career start?
I would think so. I haven't heard that for sure. I might ask tomorrow and see if I can't figure out, because I figured out that's who we thought it was going to be last week, and I figured out that's who it was. But he didn't throw over the weekend, so I think that makes sense. Another guy, another freshman who they would love, I'm sure, to get some more length out of to be able to preserve for the weekend.
He is, by the way, a low slot pitcher.
I was just going to say, get that low slot working.
On record, on live broadcast, I will eat crow and give you your credit. You were right. I was wrong. And that's how we're moving on, because I don't want to talk about baseball anymore. All right, to hoops, because just as enjoyable was what Miami and Florida State battled it out at the Watsco Center. I'm laughing because it's hilarious that FSU was down 25, largest ACC comeback in history. Curt, it couldn't happen to a better fan base than the Miami Hurricanes fans. I am so grateful and happy for them that they had to watch this. And they thought they had a game winner themselves, didn't they? It was adorable. They thought they had won the game, and Matt Cleveland had different ideas.
Jordan Miller thought he had won the game. He stood on the spot after hitting that 3 with one or 2 seconds. And it's like, dude, there are still 6 seconds on the clock. Maybe save it. Because he's there. It's him guarding Cleveland on that shot.
You could see Larinaga on TV, waving to his team, please get back. There's a full 5 seconds left in this game. Oh, man.
Well, and 5 seconds always feels like an eternity in those moments. Like how long Jalen Worley brings the ball up and kind of does it almost like it wasn't the same play, but it almost was reminiscent of that Villanova shot to win the national championship where Worley brings it up and kind of pitches it backward to Cleveland. But it's a great moment for them. It's been let's be frank, a pretty dreadful season for the FSU men's basketball team. But that's, a good memory in a season full of not many of those and probably quite a few bad memories. I thought I drew the short straw when I was covering that instead of baseball, and especially when they're down 23 at halftime. I think 25 seconds into the second half, but that's a win, especially the way it came. No one saw coming, and that's a testament to Matthew Cleveland coming back. I mean, he's important. I think 18 of his 20 points were in the second half to lead that. And I mean, it's does that loss cost Miami? Is that a full seed line loss? Is that like a
Hope
2
so.
seed line loss? Like
Gosh,
that is a dreadful. I mean, a home loss against a probably sub 250 team in net is dreadful.
Oh, dreadful, huh? You are a writer, Curt, by the way. Dreadful. That is a written word for sure. Alex, playing the villain's kind of fun at this point in the season.
Oh my gosh, let me tell you, watching that second half was so exciting. You're just watching Florida State climb back, stay in it, stay hungry. And then we're getting to the last 5 minutes of this game, and we're like, oh my goodness, Florida State could really do this. Oh my gosh, he hits that 3, and then Matthew Cleveland brings the ball out, gives it to Jalen Worley. The whole time he's running up the court, he's saying, give me the ball. I'm ready for it. Give me the ball. Give me the ball. He hits that shot and he was so ready. No, of course, couldn't be more timely. 364 days before that, he hit it against Virginia. So, I mean, it's just great to see Matthew Cleveland come up clutch in those moments. And as you said, Curt, I mean, it has been a dreadful season. It's been a difficult season for them. And to be able to pull off that win, I think is a really phenomenal highlight. And they'll be able to remember that win forever. I mean, in Coral Gables, they're 0-4 down there, So Miami loses at home all the time to the Noles, and it's great that even this year, with all that team has been through, that streak can still stay.
Well, and Miami, I think, was undefeated at home before. I think they'd beaten Duke down there. They'd beaten some really good teams down there, and so it makes it was a head scratcher for them.
It was my birthday when they came up to Tallahassee, and I sat down with a drink in my hand, and it was 19-3 the score, and I went, well, we might as well leave.
I think this one was 14-2, and they gave up like 50 plus in the first half. They were down 23 at halftime. I mean, this one was just as ugly, and I was kind of like a decent bit into my story of like, well, because with that loss, I mean, they would have tied the record for most losses in a season in program history, and they still probably will. They still will probably surpass it. I mean, but getting to push that off for at least a few more days. I mean, they play tonight. They have I guess they're only, I think, 2-day turnaround, I feel like, of the season, at least in ACC play.
Yeah, I have watched the social media videos from every angle of the shot. Miami fans and their students' reactions have been everything that we could dream of and more. As I said it couldn't happen to a better fan base.
Ariya, it's Matthew Cleveland. You've been watching Florida State basketball for years. He's got to be the most clutch guy in those moments since Snare, right?
Yes.
Other people have had, like, Trent Forrest had some moments, but like Cleveland is just like that dude in those moments, like Michael Snare was.
Yeah, I think Trent Forrest also had a big team around him, right? I mean, Matthew Cleveland's done so much on his own, not on his own, but with little support this season. It's special.
Yeah, I mean, I think in a season 2 where everyone's kind of like written Florida State off and the headlines and the storylines have been focused around Ham and what the future holds, I think people have kind of lost sight of the fact that Matt Cleveland has turned himself into an NBA player. And I think that's been cool. He came in as a 5-star recruit, took a lot of flack from the fan base on whether or not he was, living up to that potential. And in this season, he has taken that step forward. Didn't he have, like, Curt, how many double-doubles in a row did he have at one point? Do you remember?
No, it was like 8 or 9, or like, it wasn't like, I think 8 or 9 or 10. It was like the longest streak by an FSU player since like the 80s, I think, or maybe even the 70s.
And he's such a good kid. Like, when you talk to him, like, he really is a good kid. And happy for him and his family. He's going to get a chance to have his name called this year, I think, in the NBA draft, and he deserves that moment individually as well. So, hey, maybe the Noles can play villain for UNC. The Heels are on the bubble for the NCAA tournament. They're like one of the first 4 out or something like that.
That'd be a dagger, I have to imagine.
Oh, man, wouldn't that be something? If the Noles are on their villain tour right now of just ruining seasons.
They're like, we're not going in, so you're not either.
Right. So that's tonight. ESPN, you get a big Monday game. So pretty good opportunity for FSU. Funny story real quick before we move on and then kind of wrap this show. Women's basketball, we were on the road this weekend at Clemson. And we go to this restaurant, Pixie and Bill's, which, by the way, Curt, I know you're a foodie. Phenomenal. Next time you get a chance.
Smoking pig up there? That's always the move up there.
That is the move, and we've been there together, I think.
I've been to the Smoking Pig.
It's good, isn't it? It's legit.
Good vibe, too.
Good vibe. And this place, though, really, really good as well. It's even better when you don't have to pay for it, and it's on the team's dime because you order whatever you want. But I was like 7 seconds ahead on watching the shot that Cleveland hit on my phone. And like everyone has their phones out watching it. The team, Brooke Wyckoff, and the silence that I kept 7 seconds ahead, I started smiling, and Brooke goes, "Ariya, why are you smiling?" And I just said, "Keep watching." And the place erupted. We had boosters with us who came on this trip, about 10 boosters, flew with the team. And I think Clemson fans at that restaurant were wondering why the shrieks and the screams came from the entire back left corner of this restaurant. It was really funny. Something I'll never forget, actually.
I think I let out a loud cackle watching from my bedroom.
Wow. We were in Jacksonville watching at a sports bar too, and we all stood up and are screaming, and everyone in the bar is like happy for us, right? They're like, "Yeah, that was sick. Good for you guys." So it's just so great to have those sports moments, and I think that's why we love sports so much, right? Like those moments that we get to have and remember forever when those athletes go out and win it for us.
It was a crazy day of college basketball too. Weren't there like 4 or 5 like buzzer beaters like that? Like Arizona State hit the crazy one.
Yeah, San Diego State hit one as well, I think, at New Mexico. Did you see Joel Embiid's 90-foot shot that didn't count because he was half a second late?
Yes.
I mean, it was just an insane day. Guys, March is just around the corner. This is March Madness. And Curt, as John Rothstein says, we sleep in May. That's what we do.
Not in baseball world. We'll sleep in July.
I was going to say, I probably won't be doing a time for them, but
hopefully in Omaha. All right, guys.
I have other hobbies besides college basketball, unlike John Rothstein. Let's
do some quick hitters here and wrap up with softball and women's basketball. Alex, you've done some sideline reporting for softball this year.
Yeah.
They look really strong. Lineup looks good. And they swept through the Unconquered Invitational this weekend.
Oh, yeah. Team 40. Lonnie Alameda, she's just the best. It's so easy to buy into that team and to get passionate about what they're doing, right? No surprise that they, swept in their Unconquered Invitational. It's called that for a reason. So her team's been great. And I'm just really excited for how the rest of the season is going to shake out. I think that one thing I know that's really different from any team she's had in the past that, that I've been around for is her utilizing so many different players. She's kind of always had her starters and rode with them. As of Friday, she had used 13 different lineups in 15 games. That's unheard of for her. And she also has the most pitchers on staff than she's ever had in any of her teams at Florida State. So I think that she's kind of just developing that as well, seeing who she has, seeing who's going to be that player to, fill Sydney Sherrill's spot and who's going to come in and be the most important players in every position. And how is that batting lineup going to be the most successful? And I think it's really cool to kind of watch while she figures all of that out, because again, it's different than what we've seen in past.
The lineup is deep, and Katie Dack's addition has been phenomenal. Coming from A&M. That's going to be, I think something they can rely on is that lineup throughout the year. Curt, what do you think of the pitchers in the circle? Because Sandercock's been Sandercock, but maybe McKenna Reed, Allison Royalty, you might, if you find one more, right, that can kind of step up in there and be a legit number 2. Florida State's got as good of a shot as anybody of not just getting back to OKC, but doing some damage.
Yeah, I mean, you're encouraged by what you've seen there for sure. I mean, having so many candidates to kind of be the second part of the 1-2 punch with Kat Sandercock. And you talked about, McKenna Reed's been really impressive, kind of getting thrown into a pretty significant role in some big moments right away. And Allison Royalty, I think, has started to kind of feel more comfortable. It seems like, I know she had a better weekend after kind of a few struggles earlier in her career. And I think that's part of, that's what this year, that's what all these preseason tournaments or early season tournaments with so many games are about, is giving people opportunities, seeing who sinks and swims, and seeing who you can kind of count on. Because for as many players as she's using, that will start to scale down a little as the season goes on. I have to imagine you'll see less pitchers. I think you'll see a more consistent lineup emerge. And so, yeah, it's about kind of figuring that out, but she's definitely got options. Nice. It's a nice place to be in.
All right. So they got one more big tournament coming up in Tallahassee, right? Like the Dugout Club Classic. That's right. Cool. All right. So they're going to play another big weekend. Alex, have fun with baseball, softball hybrid.
Hey, gotta love it.
They got you guys wire to wire morning until midnight, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going in right after this, that UNC game. They sent all of ESPN to come work with us, so that'll be exciting. And then, yeah, producing Wednesday, producing baseball all weekend, softball all weekend, But this is also the best time of year because it's fun. It's a grind that you enjoy being in, and even when you don't enjoy it, that's why we're doing it. So it's really cool. And hey, we're not watching bad sports, right? We're talking about a lot of really good teams.
Always more fun when you're winning, no doubt. All right. Lastly, women's hoops, number 5 seed in the ACC tournament. They got a one-round bye, and will play on Thursday at 11 a.m. against the winner of, I believe it's Wake Forest and Virginia. Noles had a chance to have a double bye. Louisville put it on a silver platter. Unfortunately, we picked the worst time of year to play our worst game of the season at Clemson. Tanaya Latz and Latuman for the first time all year, which is a testament to how good she's been. And so that's okay. It seems like the team's pretty optimistic. It was a quiet plane ride home, but I think quickly they've turned their attention to postseason basketball. It's do or die time. Yep. And Florida State can win that first round, that second round game in their first game in Greensboro. You get a rematch against Louisville the next day. And I think every single last one of them can't wait for an opportunity to exact revenge on these Louisville Cardinals. And so we'll be there all week. Going to go do laundry real quick and get ready to be on the road for the 4th time in 6 days.
Yeah, and I'm not the busy one. That's you.
No sleep around these parts this time of year, but you can tune in. I believe this year ACC Network has all the games up until the semis, and then it's ESPN 2 or 1. I think the finals.
No more Valley.
No more Valley, right?
No more Valley. For baseball, too, I think. It's a big deal.
Baseball, you're right. Baseball as well. So we'll see what Florida State can do. A strong week in Greensboro could put them in position to host the NCAA tournament. They're right there on the bubble, so we'll keep an eye out on them. All right, guys. Well,
I believe in this Florida State women's basketball team, no doubt. I think they're ready for the postseason, and I just want to put it out there now, put it on the record that I believe in this team. Lost at Clemson or not, they're going to be ready to go in this postseason.
You've got the belief of an Alex DeCapua. That goes a long way. Let's sign off for today. I think pretty good show. Those of you, again, thanks for joining us on YouTube, on Twitter, on Facebook. Please subscribe to the Osceola.com. Curt's doing a great job, as well as Bobby Ferranti, one of our friends. I call him Bobby Buckets. I don't think he likes it, but Bobby Buckets it is. Jerry Cutts, Pat Burnham, Charles Fishbein, and the whole crew. So this will be on demand for those of you who want to listen on Apple Pods, on Spotify. And Curt, good job as always. You and Bob will handle it on Wednesday in the show again at 12:30. Alex, appreciate you. Hope to have you back very soon here on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It was awesome.
All right, guys. Well, until we talk to you again, I'm Ariya Massoudi, and this has been Seminole Sidelines.